History is an important discipline in all civilization. When a country suffers a disconnect with its past, there is disorientation, chaos, planning without data, and lack of focus, all of which manifests in underdevelopment. Nigeria is still regarded as a slowly developing nation, lacking in various regards. As the country heads into another election year, all eyes are on the elephant in the room, the presidential poll. Good afternoon and welcome to Standpoint. I'm Veronica Danik-Boy. Joining me on this special edition of the show to x-ray the past, the present, and the future of Nigeria's democracy ahead of the 2019 general election is the Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
President Muhammadu Buhari is contesting for re-election amidst a plethora of opposition candidates. In 2015, he came with the wind of change, anchoring his campaign on three cardinal aspects: fighting corruption, fixing the economy, and tackling insecurity. Well, let's start off with the economy. But before we go there, there was you were somewhere you went to pay your last respects to the late General David Gbagboye in Umuaran in Ilorin, and there was something you said I want to quote. You said, governance is not also about fat bank accounts one has, but about infrastructural development, socio-economic and educational impacts on the governed. Now, from what we have read, I'd like to know how, from your evaluation, the government so far has fared in the past 3 years in all of this stemming from your statement.
Well, I think the starting point, Veronica, is where were we in 2015 and where are we today? And I've said it on various platforms why the president deserves a second term. Deserves a second term largely because he has leveraged his integrity, which is legendary. It's acclaimed management of resources, both human and material, to reinvent governance and make a positive impact on the lives of Nigerians.
When you say reinvent governance, you need to break that down. How do you mean?
Now, before now, governance was not so much about the people, the governed, but rather about those who are leading. Today, we have a government that has concentrated on building infrastructure, ensuring self-sufficiency in food production, taking on a very ambitious social investment program that today feeds 9.5 million children one day a meal in at least 45,000 schools in 24 states, and the process employing about 87,000 cooks. We have a government today that is focused on not just, making sure that we get self-sufficiency in food production, but it has invested in agriculture. And today, from 5 million rice farmers, today we have about 11, million rice farmers. We have a government that inherited 2,690 distributable megawatts of power, distributable power, and in 3 years raised this to 5,125 megawatts. It's the same government that inherited generating capacity of 4,000, and today the government, through its PAP, that is the Payment Assurance Program, which has eased the liquidity challenges of both the gas suppliers and the generating companies, has increased power production from 4,000 to 7,000. In the area of power again, we inherited a grid capacity of about 4,000 megawatts. Which has now been increased to 7,000 megawatts. So these are the things we say that we have impacted largely on the lives of Nigerians. Right. In the area of infrastructure, we all knew what the situation was, Lagos Ibadan Expressway, what it is today, or the Benin Shagamu Road, what it was before, what it is today, we all knew how many days we used to, how many times we all slept going to Ibadan from Lagos. Today, you can make Ibadan to Lagos the same day. Even though work is going on, we have been able to cut down the travel time. This is not just Lagos, Ibadan or Shagamu, Benin. If you look at Ilorin to Jebba Mokwa, it used to take 3-4 days to go from Ilorin to Jebba. Today, that 93-kilometer road has been completed, and it takes just, under 2 hours to go to Ilorin from, Jebba or vice versa. I also conducted a tour in the southeast, where I went from, from Enugu to Onitsha. And along the road, I saw work going on. Work which is being funded and being financed by the proceeds of the Sukuk bond of 100 billion naira that the government took, which was divided into 16.6 billion naira in each of the, for each of the geopolitical zones, and which today is powering infrastructure, funding infrastructure of 25 critical roads. Now, this government has invested in bridges, in roads, in rail. We have put aside a $1.3 billion for the under the Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund to ensure that 5 critical projects don't suffer from funding. These are some of the projects that have been abandoned for 40 years, such as the Mambila Power Project, such as the Second Niger Bridge, such as the East-West Road, the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and the Abuja, Kano Road. This $1.3 billion has been put aside to ensure that this critical infrastructure will be funded. Now, I can go on and say that there's absolutely no area of our lives that we have not impacted on. And the question we ask people, look, how much are you paying for diesel in 2015? How much are you paying today? How many hours of power did you have from the
power? If I may cut in, power as of last week had dropped from 4,000 capacity that we were generating to about 2,000 because, according to reports, the distribution and transmission problems. And then because even where I stay, for about a week, there has been no power. Now, critical infrastructure, talking about the Mambila project, we spoke about this on a program I anchored last week. And we're talking about the fact that even to where that Mambila power project, there is no road. And so if there are funds, why are we not using those funds to do what it is meant for, especially for the Mambila Power Project that could serve as a support to what we have now in Egbin?
But Veronica, I think we often confuse power generated with power distributed, and they are two different things. Now, to start with, whether it is generation or distribution, it is not the responsibility of the federal government again. Before we came in, distribution was privatized, so also was generation. Today we have about 13 GENCOs, or thereabout, that generate power. But when we came in, all they were generating put together was under 5,000. Actually 5,000, which I told you we've been able to raise to 7,000. Now, but to ensure that there's connectivity between the GENCOs and the DISCOs, the government has put in place, a program which we call Transmission Expansion and Rehabilitation Program. And as we speak today, there are 90 such projects going on all over Nigeria. Now, Nigerians have forgotten very easily that the last administration abandoned over 800 containers of power equipment at the ports because they did not pay the contractors. The contractors could not pay the ship owners. They could not pay the warehouses. We have retrieved 690 of those containers today. We've been able to bring back those contractors back to work. And people who live in Ibadan, who live in Mowe, who live in Marogbo, who live in past Ondo West and Ondo East, who had never seen power for 10 years, will tell you that they have power today. Now, if once in a while you have a problem in distribution, it's not about generation. Generation is different. As a matter of fact, as I speak to you, not only do we generate 7,000 megawatts of power, by the end of this year, we are going to have an additional 2,000 megawatts of power. But there's this disconnect between the generation and distribution. And this is where the government has come in to help again the distribution companies by embarking on what we call the distribution expansion project, working in concert with the DISCOs. Now, as to the Mambila Plateau, now again, I can't forget that this was a program that was started in 1974-75, if you remember. It took the concerted effort of this government to revive this project. And this project is going to add 3,050 megawatts of power. And the earthworks. How
soon is that going to be?
3,050.
How soon?
You see, in a few years' time. Power projects are not something you do overnight. But what I'm saying that this is the only one that has the courage, the political, courage to see that this, project is revived. And early works, like what we're talking about, like roads, will commence very soon. This was passed, I think, about July or so in the Federal Executive Council. And to ensure that we are not going to suffer from critical funding, this is why we put together this $1.3 billion to take care of those projects. In addition, you can see Mr. President going out to invite foreign investors also to come and invest in this project. This is probably one of the biggest projects any country can embark upon. All
right, quickly before we move on to the economy, about 15 power plants are said to be idle at the moment. Is that for the federal government to do or for the private sector to handle quickly? And if it is for the federal government to handle, what is the plans to ensure that these plants come back to life?
Well, like I explained to you, part of the reasons, why we've been able to, why we're what we are today, is the absolute failure of the last administration. I'm not being defensive. I'm giving you facts. I'm saying that they had a very ambitious power, plan. But unfortunately, due to one reason or the other, equipment that were brought in for these projects were abandoned at the ports for several years. And I'm talking about over 800 containers of power plants and equipment. That is this government that came back, paid those contractors. Then I paid back and got 690 to date of those containers. And that is why you are able to fix the transmission in many areas. Like I told you, yes, the major part of our generation has been contracted out before we came in.
Yes.
Now, the NIP, I think the NIPP project, a bit of this is being managed by the federal government, and I think only the Minister of Power Works and Housing can give detailed explanation about that. But what I'm saying is that what we inherited in generation, we've improved. You see, how are we able to get power generation to be improved from 4,000 to 7,000? Because we put together what we call a payment assurance program to ensure that of 701 billion naira to ease the difficulties of gas suppliers and generating companies who complained that they have capacity to generate, but these DISCOs don't have the capacity to pay them. So we now put together this 701 billion naira guarantee that as long as you are able to supply gas, and you are able to, generate power, and we have proof of it, we will pay you before while the DISCOs are sorting out their issues. And that's why I tell you today, there's that palpable difference in power. In the area of distribution again, we are distributing 2,690 megawatts of power in 2015. In January 2018, we distributed 5,125, megawatts of power. So in every area of power, we have a story to tell. In every area of rail, Ibadan, the Lagos-Ibadan, standard gauge road. Sorry, standard gauge rail, which is a section of the Lagos-Kano standard gauge road. It's going to be commissioned by February or March. The 3,500 network of, narrow gauge road is now being, revived. We had General Electric, who signed a consortium with us, but I think they have their own problem. Transnet has now come in. And we expect in the next 12 months that not only will there be a reduction in travel time on that network, scheduled and special freight services will be resumed after almost 1 decade on the rail project. I mean on a rail network. So we have a story to tell that we have impacted positively on lots of Nigerians. There's any government in the world that feeds 9.2 million pupils 1 meal a day cannot be said not have impacted on the lives of of those children. And these are facts and figures that we challenge anybody to challenge. And there are 4 aspects of our social investment program. There's the home feeding, which today caters for 9.2 million students. And for many of those students in public schools, the only 1 meal they are sure of in a day. And this has led to increase in school enrollment in many areas. There's also the conditional cash transfer. This government, working together with the World Bank, has identified the most vulnerable and poorest families in the 6 geopolitical zones. And they receive every month 5,000 stipend. And we today are servicing 297,000 households.
297,000
households, yes. Then there's also the JEEP, which is the government enterprises empowerment program, which gives loans between 50,000 and 150,000 naira. And today, over 400,000 cooperatives have benefited from that. And we have about 2 million people who have benefited from the traders' money. And then our Empower program has employed 500,000 unemployed graduates in Nigeria. And this employment has nothing to do with whether you belong to APC or you belong to PDP. People apply online and they are shortlisted, and you very soon get the testimony of many of these people. So if you're talking about the economy, if you're talking about fighting corruption.
I'll still go back to the economy, because there are reports that, or rather key national indicators would rather suggest that a great number of Nigerians now live within the poverty bracket. That's about 14.02%, or I would say that about 8 million job losses. Well, we also have about Nigerians living at about $1.9, living below $1.90 a day, extreme poverty, and 88 million of them are Nigerians. And now you said that about 2.97 thousand have benefited from your program, one of the programs that you mentioned earlier. Now, how would you react to this? Because despite the fact that Nigeria's economy has been rated as the best, we are still having this.
You see, I think, Veronica, people take reports, aspects of reports that favor them. When the National Bureau of Statistics, when it issues its reports. Now, to start with, Nigerians don't make a distinction between white-collar jobs and blue-collar jobs. And there's an attempt right now by the Ministry of Water and National Planning to also incorporate blue-collar jobs. When you are talking about jobs that have been provided. Now, I said earlier at this program that the number of rice farmers before we came in was 5 million. Today we have 11 million rice farmers. Those are jobs that are created. Now, again, we must know that about 1.4 million Nigerians enter the labor market every year. It is irrespective of what the government does, because these are people who have left school at different level. Now, what I'm telling you is that the only solution to this is massive investment in infrastructure, power, roads, rail, water. That's the only way you can generate jobs. And this is what this government has done and is doing. Yes, we might not have been able to reach everybody.
Right.
But what we are saying is that it takes more than 4 years anywhere to fix an economy that has been ravaged by, say, 16 years. Everybody talks about, Singapore. It took 30 years of Lee Kuan Yew to fix 30 unbroken years by Lee Kuan Yew to fix the economy of, Singapore. We have only been in power for 3.5 years, and records are there to show. I'm saying that in 3.5 years, we've grown power production from 5,000 to 7,000. Distribution from 2,690 to 5,000. Transmission from 4,000 to 7,000. I'm saying that within 3.5 years, we fixed Lagos. We're in the process of almost completing Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, Benin-Shagamu Road, the Lagos Express, the Lagos-Ibadan dual standard carriageway. And I'm saying that, and the area of health, health, even though you know that health is shared between federal government, state and local government, but working with the NSI, we have invested $10 million in Lagos University Hospital for a modern cancer treatment center, which is going to be commissioned in February 2019. Another $5 million investment has gone to the Federal Medical Center in Umuahia for a diagnosis center. Another $5 million has gone to the Malam Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital for another diagnosis center. And this one also will be commissioned in March 2019. So, I challenge people. These are figures I'm giving out. I challenge them to say it is not true.
There's figures?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. I'm challenging them to say these figures are not true.
Perhaps all of this is not being properly communicated to Nigerians to understand, because the agitations are almost everywhere. You can almost feel it.
Veronica, number one, it takes more than one election cycle to fix an economy. Number two, this government did not just start advertising or talking about these things today. What this government did, which is unique, is that when we came in, we realized that it's not only when election time comes that you should engage the citizens.
True.
So we organized town hall meetings. We've organized 14 of such town hall meetings. The last one was in Ibadan. There's no geopolitical zone we have not organized at least 2 town hall meetings. And we chose different topics. We invite different ministers to give an account of their stewardship. But those naysayers, no matter even when they are confronted with the evidence, they will say, "You are doing nothing." I received a call yesterday from Chief Juro Onabule, which was a response to his column. They said nothing is happening in the Second Niger Bridge. I went to Second Niger Bridge. I went there with about 25 to 30 journalists. We saw the progress that had been made on the road. Yes, somebody said no, nothing is happening on the Second Niger Bridge. I took about 30 journalists. We traveled from Enugu to Longpata to Abia to Umuahia Bridge to Abia to Port Harcourt to showcase the various contractors who are working on the almost 240-kilometer stretch of road between Enugu and Port Harcourt. And yet they said no, they didn't see anything. I took another 30 journalists to go with me from Enugu to Onitsha. And along the way, we saw signs of contractors working. All of them say that Sukuk, is the Sukuk bond they are using. Now, but we will continue because we have, records to show. we have achievements to showcase. Our campaign is not only issue-based. Our campaign is on what we have achieved. It's not about name-calling or mouth-clinging. That will not help you. I just want to know what have you done for them. And I've just, in the last couple of minutes, I've told you what we've done in the area of infrastructure, told what we've done in the area of, social investment program. I've told what we've done in the area. Of course, we're going to talk about security. We're going to talk about...
Yes, definitely.
Yes, we're going to talk about security. We're going to talk about, fighting corruption.
Because some of this infrastructure development that you have said, some cross-section of Nigerians believe that corruption is actually at the bane at all of this, why we are not really, or why Nigerians are not really feeling the impact.
No, I think they are correct to say that, you see, like I said before, the difference between this government and present administration, this government believes that governance must impact positively on the lives of people. Now, all these programs I've reeled out today, probably you have not even taken benefit of it. I have not, probably, because I don't have any child in public school. But those wards and parents of the 9.5 million children that we feed every day, of course we know the impact we've made. But I agree with you. Corruption has been the bane of development. So what did this administration do to fight corruption? The first thing we did was to ensure on the faithful implementation of the Treasury single account. Before we came in, yes, people were paying lip service to TSA, but we had about 22,000, the government had about 22,000 different accounts in different banks. With this government, we insisted that every penny, every revenue of government must go into the TSA. And the seeding result, as I speak today, 8.9 trillion naira has gone into the Treasury, single Treasury account. Before now, ministries, departments, and agencies hardly ever remitted money to Federation account. But you can see, and I'll give you an example of JAMB. Between 2010 and 2016, JAMB remitted 51 million naira to Federation account. 51 million naira in 6 years. In 2017 alone, under administration, JAMB, paid 7.8 billion naira into the Federation account. The records are there. And 2018, they are poised to even do better. Now, I'll give you another example. Between 2010 and 2015, it was found out that 8.1 trillion naira was underpaid into the Federation account. This is not our own, this is not figures we're manufacturing. This is the figure from the National Economic Council, chaired by a PDP, a PDP governor. Now, just before, we sit on corruption.
No, I know. We'll come back to that because we need to quickly go on a short break and return to continue with the discussion. Do stay with us. You're still watching the special edition of Standpoint, and we still have in the studio the Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. Before we went on break, you were talking about the government's effort in fighting corruption.
Yes. Now, we introduced the whistleblowing policy December 2016. Until date, that policy has led to humongous recoveries. For instance, we're able to recover 13.8 billion naira in tax evasion alone. We're able to recover 7.8 billion naira, 378,000 US dollars, 27,200 pounds from public officials as a result of this whistleblowing. The Ministry of Finance again also introduced what is called the efficiency unit in government. This unit is meant, is has a duty to ensure that nobody, abuses the system and that the resources of government are effectively, harnessed. And here we have saved 17 billion naira in 2017 from sitting allowances, from souvenirs, and from travels. So these are the things we have done to ensure that we fight corruption. Because fighting corruption is not just arresting and prosecuting. No. fighting corruption starts from the kind of measures we put in place to ensure that, people don't, abuse the loopholes in the system.
So what is government doing to block these loopholes so as to ensure that, it stops all of this? Yes, the TSA and all of that. But then there are still talks about people are still, trying to fighting corruption back. They are fighting corruption back, and also that, the measures being put in place can also are being manipulated. Talking about the EFCC choosing the government using the EFCC as a tool to pick certain persons, and then talks about the judiciary being on the part of the government, being also a tool being used by the government to, sort of witch hunt certain persons.
You see, I think there's been a lot of emotional outbursts which cannot be supported by facts. And I keep telling them, tell me one single person, whether a former governor or a former politician, or anybody who was being investigated by EFCC, and because he has simply crossed over to APC, his such investigations have stopped or ceased. I challenge anybody to come and give me just one person. Now, you see, we cannot stop anybody that says he wants to join our party. But that does not mean that your sins are forgiven. No. On the contrary, there are two different types of government. I'm not a party. If you come and join our party, the party cannot direct EFCC to stop your investigation or prosecution. No. But naysayers will come and say, oh, they are doing witch hunting. Who has been witch hunted? They will not tell you. Just one person who has been witch hunted. Tell me one person who today is being investigated and there's no proof about it. There's actually no proof about it. Now, as to judiciary, all we can do is we can only strengthen judicial capacity, give them more courtrooms, improve the judges' welfare, because the judiciary is completely independent from the executive arm of government. But what we keep telling people is that, you see, please judge us by our records. Judge us by how much we have recovered in 3.5 years. Judge us by the standard with which we are living. Judge us by what used to happen before and what is happening today. Of course, today we have killed many powerful enemies because it's no longer business as usual. It's no longer business as usual when you have become a minister and then you have access. You have access to federal government funds. That is stopped, and that is why today they look at many ministers as if, oh, what kind of ministers are you? Because it's not like before. But this is the only way that the government and the people can benefit. The government can grow, and for the benefit of the people. We must be accountable, all of us in government. The era of unaccountability is gone completely.
Okay, speaking about accountability and benefit for the people, with all of this monies recovered, what is the government plans for the people with all of this recoveries made? How is it going to benefit the people? That is one question that has been on the lips of many.
Veronica, I've spent the last half an hour.
I know. The recoveries.
You see...
we're talking about the recoveries now.
When recoveries are made, government cannot spend money without going back to National Assembly for appropriation. So when these recoveries are made, they are reported accordingly. And then when they are appropriated, they are used to service infrastructure, they are used to service, social investment program, probably they are used to, even for security. But the important thing is that we are saving money through our efficiency unit, we're saving money through the TSA, while recovering money through our whistleblowing policy. But one thing I can assure you that under this administration, nobody can re-loot any recovered loot. No, I can assure you that.
Yes, but I needed a clarification on that because that question keeps coming. And not because, like we said earlier, maybe the government is not communicating properly,
No, Veronica, I didn't say we're not
because
No, I didn't say we're not
because
communicating. You know what I said?
no, I said that.
You said so. How?
Yes,
What I
because
said is how?
a lot of Nigerians wonder we get this loot or we recover this loot, yet we don't know what is being done with it, and that is why we talked about communicating properly. All of these things.
Veronica, like I said, not only have we held 14 town hall meetings, and you see the beauty of this 14 town hall meetings is that it's not about Lai Mohammed alone. Lai Mohammed has Minister of Information and Culture only coordinates them. The last meeting we had in Ibadan, we had the Minister of Infrastructure, Minister of Power Works and Housing, we had the Minister of Water Resources, we had the Minister of Transportation. Now, the idea is for each minister to use the opportunity of the town hall meetings to interact with Nigerians and also get feedback from Nigerians what is being done. But like I said, we didn't start this because elections were coming. My first town hall was in 2016 in Lagos here. And I've continued there. The next one was going to be in Jigawa on agriculture. We've had some special town hall meetings, some general town hall meetings. Now, but you see, to come back to your question, yes, 78 billion naira is a lot of money, 7.8 billion naira is a lot of money to recover. But when you look at the overhead of government and you look at what it takes for infrastructure or for power, you can begin to understand that without this recovery being made, we probably would be in a much worse situation than we are today. But I want to assure you that this government is accountability. I can assure you.
All right, let's move on to security now, because that has been the concern of a lot of Nigerians. We had recently a clash in Kaduna, and we know what's going on in the northeast. But one of the major issues that has been also a sort of worry is the handling of the Shiite issue that recently clashed with security operatives in Abuja recently. There have been talks about court orders and the federal government, not, so to speak, not obeying court orders. And one wonders, or some cross-section of Nigerians are wondering, what message is the government trying to pass across with this issue?
No, I think our opponents are being selective about the rule of law. The honest truth is that the Kaduna State government has also gone to court, has taken this same sect to court, and without the resolution of that matter in court, there's little the federal government can do. Two, you must understand that the unique problem with the Shiites is that they don't recognize any government. You know, the Shiites have been amassing and been protesting and demonstrating in Abuja for years. And at every point, the police will provide them protection and will guide them. But in the last couple of days, 24th of October to be precise, it went, you could see that there was an attempt by them to actually stop and take over a convoy of the military that was escorting some very sensitive, weapons and ammunition from Abuja to Kaduna. They actually attacked, a checkpoint mounted by the military. And that's why the police had to withdraw. And the army came in. But in whatever was done, the army, ensured that the rules of engagement were followed. Otherwise,
there was live ammunition. They used the live ammunition, and that was a worry. People saw it as confrontational.
Veronica, when a sect throws, canisters of petrol, dangerous cudgels and weapons, and they want to overpower you as a military and take over. I'm telling you that there was a convoy that was escorting missiles and ammunition from Abuja headquarters to the central, ammunition depot in Kaduna. If they want to ambush and take over that, I think the rule of engagement would allow you to use minimum power. That's what happened in the result, in the respect of the Shiite movement last 1 week. But then, talk about security generally, you talk about the Northeast.
Yes.
Now, you see, Veronica, again, let's look at these issues in context. In 2013, 2014, the Boko Haram insurgents visited Abuja 4 times and wreaked havoc and death each time they came. They wreaked havoc, sorrow and death at the United Nations headquarters, if you remember.
Yes.
The police headquarters, if you remember. They bombed the This Day headquarters, if you remember. Yes. They went to Yanya Park twice.
Yes.
But Veronica, since we came in 2015, there has been no single attack at the capital city of Nigeria.
Well, that is why people are scared that if the way the federal government is handling the Shiite case, that it could degenerate to that.
You see, Veronica, there are 2 cases. You see, one is there are 2 different cases.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But
now,
that could degenerate to being...
You see, the Shiite are a sect, Islamic sect, don't recognize civil authority. That's the difference. Boko Haram is a terrorist organization. But at times, there could be a very thin line between both. But you see, I've addressed the issue of the Shiite. Yes. Let me address the issue of Boko Haram. Now, in 2015, when we came in, 20 local governments out of 27 local governments in Borno State alone were under the effective occupation of Boko Haram, and 4 local governments in Adamawa State. When I talk about effective occupation, I'm saying that they established the governments there, they hoisted their flags, they collected taxes, they installed emirs and deposed emirs. As a matter of fact, when I went to Bama on the 5th of December in 2015 with about 30 foreign and local journalists, when we got to Bama, which was the spiritual headquarters of Boko Haram, we thought from it that when either Algeria or Tunisia, because they had taken over completely, that all the road signs, everything was in Arabic. Today, as I speak to you, Veronica, not one single inch of Nigerian territory is under the authority of Boko Haram. Mm-hmm. They've been flushed out. Today, that we found at the Lake Chad Island. From there, they now come when they are hungry, most times when they need money, when they want to capture ammunition, to attack soft targets. And they have been contained and they are being repelled. And we must pay, you see, we must give credit to our gallant soldiers, men and women, who every day are putting down their lives so that me and you can sleep well. I've been to the theater several times, and I'm always impressed and amazed by the level of patriotism of these young men and women who are fighting to ensure that we, me and you, can sleep soundly. Now, when people talk about Boko Haram suicide, attacks, I said, look, anybody who understands the phenomenon of terrorism will know that it is always better that it doesn't start at all. Mm-hmm. Once it starts, it becomes a challenge. Where don't we have terrorism all over the world? Our own brand of terrorism is just a bit different. But once again, I want to take the opportunity to thank our military for the robust challenge for containing the Boko Haram insurgency.
All right. Still on this matter is an issue that is quite dear to the minds of, or the hearts of Nigerians, which has to do with Leah Sharibu still in captivity and the other girls in captivity as well. But then that of Leah Sharibu seemed to take a special place because she is the only one that was left when others were released. And several messages has been sent across by the group holding her in captivity. And the questions on the minds of some Nigerians is, what is government doing really to ensure her release? Seeing that at some point they were saying that they were going to kill her if nothing is done, and now they're saying that they'll make her a slave.
You see, Veronica, we Nigerians should stop introducing religion or ethnicity into a matter that is a purely terrorism. We have many, unfortunately, many young ladies and men from both faiths who are today being held captive by the Boko Haram insurgency. As a government, we don't make a distinction between Christians and Muslims. The president swore to protect the lives of every Nigerian. And that's what we are doing. You remember I was in Borno and Yobe states just a few days before the unfortunate execution of Lehman. Now, we've always left open our communication channels with these insurgents. But what we will not do is to accede to their request that will only endanger more lives.
How do you mean?
Those, you see, Veronica, what I'm saying is that, you see, no responsible government in the world would take a measure that will probably temporarily solve one problem and then create much more. No responsible government would take a measure that will expose even more people to risk. Now, but every other thing we will do. And as we speak today, we have still left open our communication channels with the insurgents. Some are backdoor. But I can assure you that night and day, we're using foreign governments, we're using foreign negotiators to ensure the safe release of everybody in captivity.
All right, now let's quickly go to the 2019 elections. It has been tagged one of the most challenging elections, so to speak, because both parties, the APC or the PDP, even though we have other parties, but it is seen as a two-horse race by a lot of Nigerians. But then some are of the opinion that the crisis or the fallout of the APC primaries could mar the fortunes of the party.
You see, Veronica, if you had asked me this question in 2014, 2015, when I was a spokesperson for the APC, I probably would have been able to elaborate more on it. But today, I'm the spokesperson for the federal government, and I think I'd rather allow the party to make its mind. However, what I want to assure you is that the party has enough capacity to resolve all these fallouts. And make no mistake about it, it's not going to affect the fortune of the party in 2019 elections. I'm also a gladiator, and I understand what is happening, but I can assure you there's enough capacity within the party to resolve all seeming issues. What has happened to us, what will happen to any government, any party, that people believe that, once you get a ticket, you are going to win. Nobody wants to be on that ticket. But I can assure you that a lot has been done to ensure that it does not affect the outcome of 2019 elections.
All right, and just yesterday,
rather our own fortune.
All right, now yesterday, the president received his WAEC attestation, and because there had been talk about his documents and all of it. And some have said that this is just a political tool or something, just because he did not present it in 2015, so why now?
Honestly, that is, to me, is a major distraction. And it's an insult, and not just on Mr. President, on the entire military, to say that somebody who rose in the army, not just to become a general, but who went through Staff School, Staff College in the UK, sorry, in India, War College in the US, went through the Nigerian military school, who had several times given evidence of his school attendance. You see, it shows that we have an opposition that cannot campaign on issues. We want people to engage us on issues. What have you done on security? What have you done on the economy? How many jobs have you provided? What have you done on agriculture? What have you done in infrastructure? What have you done on power? This is what you want to engage people on, but they know they cannot. And you see, honestly, the unique thing about this election, that for the first time, Nigerians have been given, a stark choice. Choose between a party that ran the country for 16 years, when 10 of those years, oil was selling at over $100 a barrel, and a government that ran this country for only 3.5 years, at a time when oil price was hovering between $40 and $60, and compare what each of them have done, and make your choice. You want to go back to the era of darkness, the era of looting, the era of no infrastructure? I challenge PDP to show me one infrastructure that they completed during their time. And the beauty of this government is that we came in, we inherited all unabandoned projects. And as I speak today, we've completed and commissioned over 70 ecological funds, which was started by other governments. No, that's what government is all about. Now, let Nigerians say, in 16 years, how much money went into the coffers of the government under PDP? How many kilometers of roads did they make? Now, whatever problem we have today, we as a government, we are alive to our responsibilities, and we know that government is a continuum. But we want Nigeria to say, in 16 years, this is how much PDP made from oil, from taxation. This is what they did. This is how much power they gave us or they left us. This is how much debt they left us or they gave us. And then they make a choice.
On that note, that should be enough for them to give the president a second.
Frank, Veronica, you see, like I'm saying,
yes,
I stand here and I can tell you, look, let me give you another graphic example.
Okay, that will be your final word because we are running out of time.
In 2015, when we came in, in 2014, the government budgeted 14 billion for transport, 34 billion for water and agriculture, and 106 billion for power works and housing. In 2017, we budgeted for transportation, 170 billion from 34. Budget for powers and housing, 325 billion naira. Now, the question is not just how much was budgeted, but what did you use the money for? Now, what I've been telling you today, what we use the money for. Now, in a country where infrastructure, where population is growing further than infrastructure, then the seriousness of a government is how much money are they investing in infrastructure. And this is why I've spent the last 40, 50 minutes telling you this is what we have done. For instance, they come and say, oh, this government borrowed money and the external debt has gone up.
Yes.
No, they have been very, very insincere. In 2010, the total indebtedness of federal government was 35 billion, 2010. when the PDP administration exited in 2015, they were owing already 63 billion, which means in 5 years, they borrowed 28 billion naira. In 3.5 years, they've only borrowed 10 billion naira. And what have we done with the money? Like I told you, we invested this money in infrastructure. We invested this money in social investment program. We invested this money in agriculture. So the difference is clear. It's not about the borrowing, but what you do with the borrowing.
The borrowing. All right, we must thank you, Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, for your time on the program. And that's our package on today's edition of Standpoint. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, you can watch a repeat of this edition tomorrow by 7 a.m. I'm Veronica Danik Boy. Enjoy your weekend.